We think our time's endless.
Right.
And so many of us end up wasting so much of our life chasing after what we think life should be like.
Correct.
And what we think is the right way to heal from things, which usually is, covering up all the pain and saying, I don't do feelings, I don't do emotions, I just move on. And it's like, you don't move on from something without it being dragged behind you. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond Words with me, Najwa Zebian. I'm a firm believer in the power of words to heal what they didn't break and to break what they had no right in breaking. Today we have our very first guest on the podcast, and I've been looking up to this person for years because as I went on my own grief journey, not just grieving the people I lost in my life, but also grieving past identities of mine and grieving past dreams that I thought were mine. This person's work fundamentally changed my life, and I know that it will change yours as well. I just know there are so many lessons you're going to learn that will help you see yourself and your healing journey in a completely different way. So our guest for today is David Kessler. I'm so happy to have you on. I think everyone who knows me knows how much I look up to you and how much just the words finding meaning have impacted me. And I just want to say thank you for everything that you do. And I was actually with a person right now who knows you. And she said, when you sit with him, you're going to get such positive energy and like calming, grounding energy. And that's exactly how I feel right now.
Thank you so much.
Of course. You are the grief expert. I think that's how I would like to introduce you, because when you come to mind, the word grief comes to mind. And I know that people on their journeys to heal and to try to pick up the pieces of losing someone that they love, it kind of feels like chaos and you don't know where to start. So I find that defining words really help. How do you define grief?
Well, you actually did it well when you talked about a lot of the griefs that you've experienced. I always say grief is a change we didn't want. Grief is a change we didn't want. And it's always the death of something. Of course, we all think about grief as the death of a person.
Yes.
But it's also the death of a marriage. We call that a divorce. The death of a relationship, a breakup. The death of trust from betrayal. It can be the death of ourselves if we've been involved with someone who's really narcissistically abusive. It can be job loss, pet loss. All of those are some forms of death and endings in our life that, of course, we didn't want.
Do you think that grief would be easier if we knew that the ending was coming? Or do you think it's all the same?
I think it's the same. I think people who have sudden losses wish they had more time. People who have long, protracted losses wish it was shorter. I think we're just always geared to just wish it was different and not happening.
Yes, I love that. I agree with that, because I think so many people think, I wish if I knew, then I would have done things differently. But then I think usually by the time you find out that you're about to lose something or someone, you're still going to feel that heavy weight of wishing you had done things differently or wishing you had more time.
And we all want to find a way to avoid the pain. That's just natural. We don't want to go through the pain. And the only way out of the pain is through the pain.
Yes.
And, I can't take anyone's pain away because the pain is ultimately the love.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to take that away.
Yes.
So I can help make the pain a little easier. But it's still there.
What do you tell someone to remind them of that truth, that grieving is actually love? It's a beautiful thing. It doesn't have to be this painful thing that we run away from.
Sometimes people will say, I don't understand why it's so bad or it's too intense. And I'll go, well, the grief is in proportional to the love.
Yes.
If you loved a little, it's going to be a little grief. If you loved a lot, it's going to be a lot of grief.
Yes. That's so beautiful. I love that. And I think when a person remembers that as they're grieving someone, they're just expressing all the wishes they had for things they would have done differently. Or in my case, when I lost my grandma 3 years ago, for a while I didn't believe it. It didn't click for me that it was real. I was in denial for a long time.
And if I can,
yes,
we actually have brain science that tells us your mind actually can't find that person and is having trouble, and you're so used to them being there.
Yeah.
Our brain can't absorb that yet.
Yes. I've never heard that before.
Yeah,
so
and
it's
that's what makes
me.
denial. I think
Yeah.
of denial as a grace. It means we couldn't take in all the pain at once. So our mind paces it out just a little bit to give us time to process it.
And what we might think is just an elongated amount of time where we're grieving and it feels awful, that's the natural process that we're going to go through.
And so many people think we're doing grief wrong. I always tell people, you come from a long line of dead people, like every ancestor has died. Inside of us, we know how to do this.
Yes.
It's our society now that tells us we're doing it too slow, or should get over it, or should move on. And, I always say our loved one isn't a cold or a flu that we recover from or move on from.
Yes.
We have to learn to live with the loss.
I love that so much. We want it to be that easy.
Right.
But if it's easy, then it means they never meant to us as much as we know they meant to us. I remember this story. I didn't plan on sharing this, but I still think about it from time to time. When my other grandma passed away years ago, like more than a decade ago. So I grew up with her in the same house, and we actually slept in the same room. So we had 2 beds, and I just remember falling asleep every night looking at her. And I moved to Canada when I was 16. And then when I turned 17, that's when she passed away. So I was here and she was back there, and I hadn't seen her for a year. And I remember when my cousin called me to tell me, because I was in school, she was like, are you by yourself? Are you sitting down? She knew this was very heavy news because she knew I was so close to my grandma. And she told me, and I was like, okay, thank you for telling me. And she told me later, I was shocked that you didn't cry, or that you didn't scream, or that you didn't have this, no, this can't be true.
Right.
I went back to Lebanon 2 years later. Ooh, I'm gonna cry. And I went.
That's okay. You're amongst friends here. It's all right.
And I went into that room like at night, sleep. And I looked over, and that's when it hit me that she wasn't with us anymore. So I feel like it wasn't real for me until I was back in a place where I used to spend time with her. And so when I think of the way that people in general grieve, I think sometimes what comes across as lack of acceptance is just that we haven't even gotten to the place where we've allowed this reality to be true. Like, we haven't faced that reality. It's like, no, it's not real, and I don't have to face it yet. But then you go to the place where you used to see that person, or where you used to share memories with them, and that's when it hits you. And I don't think that I reached a moment of acceptance there, but it was more like, this is when my grandma died, not 3 years ago when someone told me she did.
And many people experience it that way when we live countries away, states away, and we don't see the person day to day. It's easy. Our mind goes, well, they're just still over there.
Yes.
they're just still there. I don't see them. I don't miss them here. And it's only when you go face to face to see, oh, this is where they should be and they're not.
Yes.
That it hits us.
It's so painful.
Yeah.
And it just makes me think, how beautiful was it that I spent 2 or 3 years with her alive in my mind and in my heart, you know? And it, to this day, every time I think back to her, she's alive somewhere inside of me. The lessons she taught me, the memories I had with her, the moments when she reminded me of who I am, even as a little child. To me, grieving her to this day means living by everything that she taught me and just admiring everything that she's been through. So when I told you at the beginning of this beautiful conversation that your work has impacted me so much, it's when I found, I did so much research on the 5 stages of grief. And when I came across finding meaning, it just blew my mind away. I was like, this is incredible.
Right.
And the first thing that came to me was kind of, it's like I knew this was a great, beautiful thing to incorporate into your grief. But at the same time, I was like, how do I find meaning in losing someone I love? And I'm sure so many people ask that question. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what brought you to adding finding meaning to the stages of grief? And when you're done that, I'll ask you my follow-up.
Okay. Well, I often say this isn't a world that, no one chooses to be a grief expert. I had a mother who died when I was young, and at the same time she was dying, there was a shooting across the street. It was just, a horrific thing that happened in my childhood. And I was so lost, and I learned about this woman when I went to community college who wrote these 5 stages of dying: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. She always said they're not linear. Sometimes people think, oh, I've got to do them in a certain way. Grief is very messy.
Yes.
And little did I know I would go on years later to work with her, do a couple of books with her, and we adapted her stages of dying for stages of grief. And so folks knew them, they're in our society. And then 9 years ago, my younger son died, David, unexpectedly. And I was thrown into the epicenter of pain.
Yeah.
And, people will often go, what was it like for the grief expert to be? And I said, the grief expert wasn't, the father was. And, as I went through that, I would see myself. Yeah, you're yearning. Yep, you're in denial. I can't believe he's gone. Yeah, you're angry. Yep, you're bargaining all the what ifs and if onlys. Yeah, you're, and I saw myself, and I remember at a certain point when I thought, I'm going to have to accept this someday. I was like, it's not enough. I want more. And so I thought about this idea of meaning. And what's interesting is I think meaning often had challenges for people, because our first reaction is, there's no meaning in a death. There's no meaning in a murder. There's no meaning in a horrible divorce or betrayal or job loss or pet. There's no meaning in these things. But what I realized as I studied it, the meaning isn't in the horrible event. It's in what we do later. It's who we become. It's how their death changed us. It's how we honor their life, how we hold their memories.
Yes.
I think, one of the challenges of the book is so much about excavating the pain. And I think we see a book called Finding Meaning, and we're like, I'm not there yet. And it's like, oh, the book's going to help you get there. You don't have to get there before.
Yes.
And because really what happens is as you work through the pain, the meaning gets revealed, whatever that may be.
Yeah. As you get through the pain, the meaning will be revealed. But as long as you're avoiding it, you're not even close.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's like
But if we're avoiding it, I always don't want us to make ourselves wrong or anyone else wrong. We're avoiding it because we just can't take it in yet.
Yes.
Or because we have a society that tells us, don't go down that road, fight against it.
Yes.
Or we have friends who are going, cheer up or just move on. So all those things become factors.
Yes. Do you think that avoidance is under denial? Would you put it under there, or would you put it as before the 5 stages?
I don't really see anyone actively avoiding. I see people taking care of themselves. You know?
Tell me more.
Well, you know, from the outside, you're avoiding grief. On the inside, you either were never given the tools, you don't know how to approach it, your family didn't talk about it, maybe your culture didn't talk, whatever it is. We're not just avoiding it because we just don't want to go there. We're avoiding it because we don't know how to do it.
Yes.
I often say, I'm teaching people what our great-grandparents knew how to do. You know?
So when you're sitting with somebody who you can tell is taking care of themselves, protecting themselves from feeling that pain, what's something you tell them that maybe gives them a nudge or gives them permission to start tapping into the grief in a way that's not too overwhelming?
Yeah.
What's something you would say?
Well, it depends on what they shared. Like if someone said to me, I can't go there. You don't understand. If I started crying, I would never stop. I might say, I know those feelings feel bigger than you, but they're actually your feelings.
Yes.
And I've sat with thousands of people. Everyone stops crying eventually.
Yes.
Once they feel the feelings, we're kind of done with those feelings and just move to the next one. But, you know, it's that thing about what we resist is what stays with us.
Yes.
And, you know, our emotions need motion. So they've got to keep moving. So I would tell them, this looks like such a painful place you're in. When and how you're ready,
Yes.
if I can help you or if I have something that can help you. And, you know, one of the things I do online is lots of groups. We have like 26 groups online from all over the world. And there's something about each person gives each other permission to go there.
Yes.
There's something about we feel like, oh, I don't have to do this alone. And then we think, I don't know these people.
But I know them.
But we find ourselves in each other's stories.
Yes.
And then we also find our healing in each other's stories.
Yes. So there's a power in being around people when you're going through grief of any sort who are experiencing the same thing and who are willing to open up and talk about it.
And the confusing thing about that is most of us have our best friend who gets everything. Or maybe your spouse always gets everything. Or your sister, whoever it is. And then you get to grief, and they're the one who says after the divorce, well, good, you're rid of them. They, you know, and you're like, no. Or, well, at least they're not suffering anymore for someone who died. And all of a sudden, the person who gets you doesn't get it. And I say grief is this time when family and friends can sometimes feel like strangers.
Yes.
And strangers can become family and friends. So I love group work when people in grief get together.
How can people join your groups if they're interested?
It's online. It's at grief.com. It's called Tender Hearts.
Okay.
And it's I keep it very reasonable, and no one's turned away for lack of funds. I make sure everyone can get in.
That's amazing.
And, you know, we have groups for death of a spouse, death of a parent, death of a sibling, death of a child. We also have things like sometimes we need to talk about how they died, whether it was a long chronic illness, dementia, or it was sudden, or it was death by suicide or mental illness, all those things. Or sometimes we want to talk about the afterlife, all of that. You know, it's a place where you can have all the conversations you want to have.
That's beautiful. I feel sometimes when we talk about grief, the first thing that comes to mind is death, right? And because I remember anytime I would say grief, to me it was about the people in my life who died. And then over time, my definition evolved to grieving a friendship.
Correct.
Grieving a relationship, grieving a relationship with a family member that I thought the world of, or grieving what I thought I would have with someone, with my dad, with my mom. And also grieving past identities of mine, or past identities I thought I needed to have to be good or okay. And then with time, I realized that's not who I am. But even though you know that's not who you are, you still grieve who you thought you needed to be. What do you say on that kind of grief?
Well, you know, grief, we're on this road, and this is who we are, and this is who they are. And we think this is our road for the rest of our life. We're always going to be friends, or they're always going to be alive, or we're always going to be married, or at that job, or friend, whatever it is. And grief, the event, something happens that rips us off of that road and onto a new road. We don't know how to do the new road. We didn't plan for it. They're not with us anymore on that new road. We have the loss, just like you said eloquently, of who we were going to be on that road. We have to figure out who are we on this road. And we've lost that future, their future, our future with them. And here we are doing it differently. And sometimes we can get stuck in between, because I always say, you know, on this hand, they're stuck, and on this hand, there's chaos. And sometimes we want to get stuck because we've had too much chaos. Let me just stand still and not go to that new road, because I don't know how to do it. It's too chaotic. And so that's sort of the work, is to help people get on the new road that none of us wanted to be on, the different road, our different self.
Yes. How do you think being stuck looks like in people's lives?
Well, it's interesting. I never say to anyone, you're stuck, but they say, I feel stuck. I often will say, it might feel too scary to move forward in your life now, to figure that out. It also could be a judgment. And they'll go, what do you mean a judgment? And I'll go, sometimes we judge ourselves and our grief. And they go, no, I don't judge it. And I go, but you say you're stuck. What does stuck mean? Can we talk about that? And they'll go, well, I think I should be further along. Okay, so you think you should be further along, which kind of is the judgment that you're in the wrong place where you are. And it's such a weird thing. It's like a paradox. We have to accept where we are. Oh, I shouldn't be in this much pain. Well, you are.
Yes.
And let's just go with that and talk about that. And you have to accept where you are, which is probably a hideous place, to begin to move again.
Yes.
So you almost have to accept the stuckness and all the feelings to begin moving.
Yes. And I always say, if you judge yourself into something, so if you judge yourself enough and get to a point where you say, that's it, I'm moving on because, you know, all the voices of the people around me are also judging me. And if you fuel your change or you're moving on by judgment, you're going to sustain it by judgment. So one thing I always say is, what's fueled by shame is sustained by shame, and what's fueled by self-compassion is sustained by self-compassion, right? So if you use compassion with yourself in this stuck place that, yes, it feels awful and it feels like, you know, you don't want to be there, but you're also so terrified of just letting go and cutting that string or that cord and saying, I'm no longer anchored to the identity I've held on to for so long. If you use self-compassion, then when you continue using it, you're going to be in another place where you might feel a little bit stuck, but then you remember the beauty of just sitting with yourself and understanding and validating that, yes, this is terrible, and I wish I had more people to understand what I'm going through and all that. So,
well, and one of the challenges also is, I believe, judgment demands punishment. We'll punish ourselves or someone else.
Judgment demands punishment. That's so beautiful, and it applies, like, right as you said that, I'm thinking of all the people who judge themselves and end up punishing those who love them, those who try to get close and say, you know, I want to be there for you. They'd rather be around people who tell them things like, oh, you're bigger than this, you can move on. They'd rather be around people who don't know them and see them for who they are, but they'll punish you for seeing the pain that they're going through.
Right.
What would you say about that in your experience?
Well, to know it's normal. And once you have the awareness, once you realize it, you're like, oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Then there's room to find the self-compassion or the compassion for others.
Yes. It's really hard when someone is going through self-judgment and they end up spilling their pain on you or punishing you, to put your ego aside and your pain aside and say, I know you're suffering, so I'm going to put what you're putting me through aside to be there for you. Do you think it's a form of self-abandonment to, like, when somebody's going through their own journey of grief and they're pushing you away? Do you think it's self-abandonment for you to continue to be there for them, or do you think it's self-preservation?
You know, it's hard to know, and it depends on who the other person is. It's interesting. Sometimes people will say to me, my loved one's isolating in their grief. And I'll go, oh, tell me about that. And they'll go, well, they need to get out. They need to get a job. They need to stop this. They need to move on. And I'll hear judgment.
Yeah.
And I'll go, is there any chance you're isolating them? What do you mean? Well, you're wanting them to be different than they are. They have no room to connect with you. If every time they connect, you're like, why are you that? You should be this, you should be that. That's hard to connect with.
Yes.
So we isolate in grief, and people also isolate us. And going back to the judgment, it's interesting to think about our mind. If you and I were having coffee, and we were in a little coffee shop, and we're sitting here having coffee, and over at the next table, we hear someone talking about a horrible loss they had. And their friends saying to them, you need to get over it. You need to move on. You're really doing this all wrong. I couldn't sit there. I'd have to go, excuse me.
Same.
She's in or he's in enormous pain. You've got to be kind. They deserve kind and love. We would never allow that to happen. But how many of us talk that way to ourselves?
Yes.
And you would think, oh, in grief we would be so kind. Nope. We're pretty cruel to ourselves in grief.
I agree.
We're pretty cruel.
And the voice that gets to us the most is our own. Like, if you don't have self-compassion built into the vocabulary that you use with yourself, like let's say if you mess up and the first thing you say to yourself is, oh, you're so stupid, or that's not going to change when you're grieving the loss of someone or something that you loved. You're going to speak to yourself in exactly the same way. So what do you think are ways that we can, I mean, you can never be prepared for grief, but what do you think are ways that we can prepare ourselves to make self-compassion more of a daily habit?
Well, first of all, I say to people, I've worked on self-compassion my whole life. It's really hard. And all our experiences and our wounds often get in the way. And so I start with, when we go, oh, I'm so stupid. I should have self-compassion. Oh, I'm so bad at self-compassion. To then have compassion for yourself. that you're not good at self-compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Other voices, other actions got in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Our essence is always kind,
Mm.
but we were taught differently.
Mm.
Sometimes I'll say to people, that voice, you're so stupid. Whose is it? It's probably not yours.
No.
You heard it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Can you identify it and begin to give it back to that person?
Yes. What would you tell someone who isolates their loved one who's going through their own thing by saying, well, they need to be doing this and they need to be doing that? How can we be there for someone in our life who's grieving? Like, what do we do? What do we say? What do we not say? What do we remove from the language that we use with them?
Yeah. So first of all, grief must be witnessed.
Mm.
We just need to see them.
Mm.
We want to be seen. We want our pain to be seen. We want
Yes.
our loss to be heard. All of that. And when we say, you need to do this, we're not witnessing.
Mm-hmm.
So I start by telling people, your friend, your loved one they don't need fixing because they're not broken.
Mm.
They're in grief. So quit trying to fix them.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just meet them where they are and be there? Well, they stay home all the time. Great. Can you drop by for a visit?
Mm.
Can you be with them at home?
Yes.
They don't want to go out and have fun. I want the old them back.
Mm-hmm.
They would love the old them back too.
Mm-hmm.
But unless you can put the marriage back together for them, unless you can bring the person who died back, they have to accept the different them, and so do you.
Mm-hmm.
They've been changed, and you need to accept this different person.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a part of us when we are trying to be there for someone who's grieving and we feel like they're not making any progress? Do you think the reason we judge or the reason we say, well, they're not doing anything, they just want to sit at home all day, do you think that part comes from our own feeling like we're not good enough unless we see progress in the work that we're trying to put into somebody else?
Partly that.
Mm-hmm.
Partly it's also other people's grief makes us uncomfortable,
Yes.
makes us feel helpless. I don't want to end up sitting home at some point.
Mm.
So I got to get them out.
Yes.
I got to save them because it's going to save me.
Mm.
They have a different journey.
Yes. And it also probably wakes up for us the things that we know we need to grieve, but we're not ready for. So it's a lot easier to say, like, move on so that we can move on and we don't have to tap into it.
Every time I want someone to do something,
Mm.
you need to look at this reality. My hack is always to turn it on myself. What reality do I need to look at?
Mm.
You need to connect with more people. Who do I need to connect with? I'm like, stop with the magnifying glass and just work on ourselves.
Yeah.
You can't do anyone else's grief work.
Mm.
You can only do your own.
Absolutely. And you can, like you said, to help somebody is to witness them in
Right.
whatever it is that they're going through. And there's an analogy that I always use, and I say sometimes people are mirrors for us and sometimes they're walls. And I think the best thing you can be for someone, especially if they're grieving the loss of someone or something that they loved so much, is to be that mirror so that when they are talking to you, they feel themselves and their pain reflected back to them
Right.
in a way that doesn't judge them or shame them, instead of being the wall that feels like, they're throwing their pain at you and it's breaking because it's hitting such a hard surface that doesn't reflect them back to themselves.
Right.
Or it reminds them that something's wrong with the fact that they haven't been able to move on or to let go. So I always say, try to be a mirror instead of being a wall. And I think this applies to grief. Well,
I was going to say,
Yes.
I was in Australia and I was touring,
Mm.
and I was in this one city, and a researcher came up to me and said, I go to these small villages, and in this small village, they told me that the night someone dies, everyone in the village has to move something in their home or in the yard.
Okay.
And the researcher said, why do they do that?
Yeah.
And they were told in the small village, when the family wakes up the next morning after their loved one had died, they want them to look out and see, now that their loved one has died, everything has changed.
Oh my God, that is so beautiful.
Everything has changed.
Yeah.
Whereas in our world, you're in this place where you wake up and everything's changed, but everyone's going about their business like nothing happened.
Yes.
And we're not witnessed the way we need to be.
That's so beautiful. In my village back home in Lebanon, when someone would die for 3 days straight, out of respect, people didn't turn on their TVs or their radios. You didn't hear music. It was just complete silence to honor the fact that we feel that someone that all of us collectively loved and knew for so long is no longer here. And it really, I remember even as a child, it changed something inside of me to be in the presence of that energy of sadness, and to listen to all the stories about this person. Like, it's actually encouraged when you go to the funeral service of the person, for those who are there to recall good memories that they had with that person. And it's so beautiful to witness that everyone remembers the good things in those moments, the good things they knew about that person. And it's like the things that they did that were wrong don't even come to you. You remember how good they were, and something that they gave you or something that they brought into your life. And it's just, I love listening to different stories around the world of how people as communities grieve. And I think you're right that we're missing that now, because life just goes on. And while one person could be grieving in a way that feels like their entire life just is chaotic and changed and it'll never be the same, people that they know, who they see weekly or even daily, could still like not be affected by it in a way. And it's I don't know what symptom that is for.
Well, think about that. Think of, just those rituals you mentioned. Here's the thing we often feel about, oh, he's in grief, she's in grief. Don't mention their loved one. Let's not upset them. When our loved one dies, we have no more. And if you tell me a story about my loved one I didn't know, all of a sudden I have more of them. And I tell people, say their name, mention, talk about them to people. Once in a while, someone will say, because I do grief in the workplace and a lot of other things, someone will say, well, I said to my coworker that, oh, I've been thinking about her and her mom who recently died. And David, I made my coworker cry. And I go, no, you didn't make them cry. They were already crying. You just became a safe place for them and a safe person for them to cry with.
Yes. I love that so much, because I find that we shy away from truly giving a person who's grieving a chance and an opportunity to bring us in as a safe person, as a caring person, because we think if I bring it up, then it's my responsibility that they're feeling a certain way. But I love that you said that, because it's true. They're already feeling it. You're just giving them that safe space to express themselves. And I love that so much.
In the work, I have a grief educator certificate program, and I train therapists. By the way, you can become a therapist and a coach in a lot of places in the world and never have 1 hour of grief education.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of
I
shocking.
didn't know that.
I mean, it's only usually elective. It's not mandatory. So many people are in helping fields and never received any grief education.
I had no idea.
So, I teach therapists and coaches and also people who have been through dark nights and want to turn their pain into purpose. And it's interesting, in the program, I really teach people how to do that witnessing and also to help them help people in grief. This is a tough one, to go, I don't need to make my grief digestible for the most uncomfortable person in the room. I don't need to change who I am because they have an issue with grief. It's a tough one.
Yes. And I feel like we usually cater to the most uncomfortable person in the room.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know I do. I know I do. And it's really a challenge to, go, I have to be myself. You may not like it. I might make you uncomfortable. And that's okay.
Yes.
You're not my business.
Yes. Where do you draw the line for somebody who's really trying to be there for somebody who is clearly grieving, but they're caving into their addictions, or they're doing all these things to avoid. They're wearing a different mask for grief. And you, as somebody who loves them, you recognize that and you really want to be there for them. But where do you draw the line between saying, I'm going to be there for you no matter what, versus
Right.
This is as far as I can be there for you, and you're the one who has to make the decision to, because I know from my own experiences, I feel guilty when I just let someone that I see is suffering but is doing all the wrong things for themselves in terms of the way that they're handling it, with either with substances or just doing things that aren't good for them. I feel guilty saying, this is where my help stops, because you're going to have to make a decision. So what would you tell somebody who's going through that?
I'm going to go to a different place.
Okay.
A dear friend of mine who I met doing an interview with him years ago
Okay.
is William Shatner,
Okay.
Captain Kirk from Star Trek. And it's weird. Star Trek has a rule. It's one of their big things they can never break.
Okay.
If they go to a planet, it's one of their big directives. If they go to a planet and the wheel has not been introduced, they haven't discovered the wheel. They can't discover it for them. They can't say, hey, your life's going to be so much easier if you have a wheel. Just build a wheel. Here's what it looks like. They could save them so much trouble, but they can't interfere with another society or individual's growth.
Yes.
And it's the same thing when I see someone suffering. And all of us have told them the answers. Look, here's what you need to do. And they don't hear it. They can't take it in. And then a year later, they hear it from someone else because they were ready then. And they found the answer when they were ready. If someone asks me a question, I'm in so much pain with this addiction, with this challenge, what do I do? I'll absolutely tell them some things I think might help.
Yes.
But until then, I have to wait. I have to give them the dignity of their own experience, of their own growth, of their own time. And sometimes to recognize it's so uncomfortable to see them suffering, but they have to find their own way.
And you don't have to take it personally and say, well, they're not changing because I don't deserve that they change. It's more like they're not changing because they're not at the right moment to welcome that change.
And it could be as simple as they're not changing yet. End of sentence. They're not changing. We don't even know the reason. They're not changing yet. And here's what's in our control: to just love them And people go, well, yeah, but I want to get them to a meeting, or I want to get them in 12-step, or I want to change them, or I want to get them out of their pain. And I go, well, love them. Well, that's not going to help. Actually, it will. Love them where they are.
Yes.
Love them where they are. You see them struggling?
Yeah.
Say to them, wow, I see you're struggling. I see how hard you're trying to figure this out. Period.
And I'm here when you need me.
And I'm here.
Yes. I love that, because I feel some people say, well, you enable them when you don't push them to move on or let go. If you just sit with them in their suffering or in their misery, then you're enabling them. Right. And I don't believe that. I stand with you on it in a way.
I mean, we have to have boundaries, and boundaries are about us, not the other person. So we have to be the one to go, listen, I see you're lost. I'm here for you. And you can't call me at midnight calling me names. I'm not going to pick up my phone.
Yep. Or if I hear that word, I'm hanging up.
Right. I'm hanging up, and we'll have a conversation another time. But we sometimes with boundaries want the other person to change instead of knowing, oh, it's up to me to hold my boundary.
Yes.
Oh, if my boundary is no calls after 10 p.m., that means my phone goes off.
Yes.
Or I don't answer. I mean, I've seen people go, no calls after 10. And then you call at midnight and haven't we talked about this? And I give you a lecture on breaking boundaries, but I'm breaking the boundary with you.
Absolutely. I love that. It's so true. You have to stick to the word.
Your boundary.
Stick to your word
not the other
first.
person.
Absolutely. I love that so much. There's so much that we can talk about, but I know we're running out of time, but I do want to ask you a couple of questions about romantic relationships.
Sure.
How do you grieve a relationship with a narcissist?
Well, first of all, to understand that someone, because of their wounding, wounded you. Wounded people wound people.
Yes.
And we have lost ourselves. And our work is to find ourselves again. Like sometimes you come out of a relationship so gaslit. And so I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what's true. We have to give ourselves the room and the trust to come alive again. I always say it's sort of that death of self is the only one we can often come back from. We can find ourselves, but it takes time and it takes compassion. And we're so used to and trained to be other-oriented. We have to learn how to become self-oriented. Yes. It's no longer about them or anyone else. It's about you.
Yes.
You're the only one that can save and find your life again. And a lot of things that also happens in romantic relationships is we grieve the person who divorcing us, leaving us, breaking up, whatever the situation is, betraying us. We grieve the loss of them and the parts of them that we did love, that were kind and were fun and were all those things. But many times I also see people grieving them because they think they lost their soulmate. And I always say, your soulmate isn't the one who breaks up with you. Your soulmate isn't the one who betrays you. Your soulmate isn't the one who leaves you.
Even if it's coming from their own pain.
Even if it's coming. Now, I want to go back and say, because it's not quite true, your soulmate isn't the one who betrays you and doesn't repair. Because sometimes people can repair betrayals quite beautifully.
Yes, that's so true. And I think in the moment when you're going through it, I was talking to a friend recently and she said to me, it's been years since the relationship's over. And I still have to, at certain points, really focus myself to see reality for what it is. Like the impact of that gaslighting that she went through in that relationship really affected her for a long time. And I thought, how is that part of grief? Is learning to trust yourself part of grieving what you thought you had with that person, what you thought was reality, what you thought was defining your reality in the way that's like, I trust you, therefore I'm going to believe your version of reality. So if you tell me that I'm seeing white, but you tell me it's blue, I'm going to put more emphasis on your opinion than my own.
Correct.
So years later, when I'm no longer in that and I'm learning how to trust my own perception of reality, do you think there's grief in
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I came to that because, my mother, I love her, wounded herself. She was probably further along on the narcissistic side. And I grew up being anything you need. I've got X-ray vision. I know how to take care of everyone here.
Hypervigilant.
I know. Oh my gosh. What are their favorite foods? I know them.
Yes.
What do they dislike? I know that. What are my favorite foods? Whatever you want. What? You don't have your own favorite foods? And so I had to really learn and have compassion for myself that this was imprinted on me. And so no wonder, and I used to have a joke about, time after time I'd be at a party and the charismatic person across the crowded room, I'd be like, oh, they're the one for me. It wasn't until years later I realized, oh, that charismatic person across the room who wants to talk about themselves, they're the one person who's not for me.
Yes.
Let me meet all the other boring people in the room who are actually present and will turn out to be not really boring, but they'll turn out to be really present for me.
I feel like people like that who are so charismatic, when you are the kind of person who, because I'm exactly the same, this person needs this and this person doesn't like that. And I can tell by the way they're looking and I can tell by their body language that something's making them uncomfortable. Let me change it. And I find that it's the people who put us on the hamster wheel of they can never be happy, but they give us the responsibility of doing all the things that potentially could make them happy. Those are the ones that we end up trauma bonded to, because we're like, I have this need to please and you have this need for people to put all this energy into trying to change you and make you happy. And so the way I visualize it, it's like a straight up heart and an inverted one. And the two of you just complement each other.
And, if my wound is from my childhood not being seen.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
To be seen.
A narcissist who's really abusive has special powers.
Yes.
That when they zoom in, you feel so seen finally. And you don't know there's a dark side to that.
Absolutely. They put you on the pedestal and then they just remove it and you crash to the ground and you think, what just happened? And please see me again the way you did before. And I think in that process, you have to grieve who you thought they were. And you have to grieve why it is that you thought in the first place that you needed their validation in some way.
And I always say freedom is found in reality. And so we have to grieve the illusion we had in that relationship.
Freedom is found in reality. I love that so much because we run away from reality. We don't want reality.
Well, reality's tough. Reality's tough. I'm not a fan of reality, but I got to make peace with it all the time.
We want to filter it the way we filter images on Instagram and whatever, and remove all the little things that we don't want to see. But freedom, I love that so much. Freedom is in reality. Words that found me, and it's words that found you at some point in your life that just moved you in a way that just they stayed with you. So what are words that found you?
I'm always thinking about there's grief, but there's also life. It's Mary Oliver.
Okay.
Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what do you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I love that.
So beautiful.
What do you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? Because everything dies
Yes.
too soon.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we going to do with this moment?
Yeah, we think our time's endless.
Right, right.
And so many of us end up wasting so much of our life chasing after what we think life should be like.
Correct.
And what we think is the right way to heal from things, which usually is, covering up all the pain and saying, I don't do feelings, I don't do emotions, I just move on. And it's like, you don't move on from something without it being dragged behind you, right?
Yeah, and if you don't attend it, you will keep it with you.
Yes. I love that so much. It's like hidden somewhere inside of you saying, hear me,
Right.
listen to me.
Well, I always say what we run from pursues us, and what we face transforms us.
I love that.
What we run from pursues us, and what we face transforms
It's
us.
like the quote about running towards the storm.
right.
I actually think I heard you say it. You were telling the story.
I studied
of how,
buffaloes
there
in
you
there,
go.
and
Yes.
buffaloes run into the storm,
Yes.
minimizing the time they're uncomfortable.
Yes.
Unlike us, that keep grief and pain behind us and keep it with us intensely for our whole life.
Yes. So face it, run
Face it.
towards it, and you'll spend.
Face it with some support and some help.
Yeah. Yes, it was you that I heard tell this story. As soon as you said that about...
Right.
Yeah, I was like, that's where I heard it from. So now it's time for the second segment, which is words from me to you. So it's going to be words from you to everybody who's listening that you feel will help them in some way with their grief journey.
It's probably one of the hardest things you're going to tackle this lifetime. And don't do it alone.
I love that.
If the people don't get it, find people who do. People will say to me, I keep trying to convince my husband, my wife, my sister, my best friend.
Like they just don't
and
get
I'll
it.
go,
Yeah.
you can walk up and down the aisle of a hardware store forever and you're never finding milk. If they don't get it, choose another person. They can still be your spouse. They can still be your best friend. They're just not grief literate. Find someone who speaks grief. Like, I would never get mad at you because she can't be my friend. She doesn't speak Chinese. Okay. We can speak other languages. Let me find someone who speaks Chinese. Oh, you don't speak grief? Let me find someone who speaks grief.
Yes.
I don't need to cut you out. I just need to find someone who speaks grief with me.
Yeah. Like stop looking for your medicine in the wrong place.
Right.
I think we've come to a point where people think if you don't put the effort to understand me, then that means you don't love me. And I think from everything I learned from you and what we've said during this conversation, someone can love you but not have the capacity to carry your pain with you or to understand your pain. And it could be because they have their own. And to them, they think it's something I deal with on my own, so you should also deal with it on your own.
And each of us has our own background. We were taught feel it. Other people were taught suppress it.
Yes.
We were taught let it out. Other people were taught don't mention it. We all come from different places.
Yes. I don't want this to end, but I keep thinking of all the things I want to ask you. But there's one thing I want to make sure I do ask you. You say your grief is the worst grief. Tell me about that.
Sure. People always say to me, what's the worst grief? Is it a child dying or is it a murder? No, it's a pet that's with you daily for 17 years, every day. Or is it your spouse who divorced you and now's your ex and they're living in the world rejecting you every day? Which is the worst? And I always go, the worst is yours. It's yours. I can't feel anyone else's grief but my own. Yes. So your worst is your worst and my worst is my worst. And we somehow want to compare. And comparing takes us out of healing because comparing's of the mind and not of the heart.
Yes.
And we heal from our heart.
Yes. I was once sitting in a gathering where I was talking about my dog, Mila. She's a year old and this person had just had a baby. And I remember making a comment like, this was the best decision I ever made. And this woman said, well, it's nothing like having a baby. And I just remember thinking, why would you say that? Like, does there have to be that comparison of...
Because I can't see you.
Yeah.
I can only see me.
Yes. And why does there have to be that belittling of the love that I have for a creature in my life, you know? And I feel we do that with grief, where you hear someone say, oh, you know, you lost your baby. You have no idea. I lost my mom and my aunt and my dad in the same year. And it's like, I understand that people do that sometimes to validate for themselves how painful their experience has been. But at the same time, you know, you're robbing the other person from having permission. I want you to tell everybody where they can find your work, where they can find your courses, everything that you do, because you're a light in the world, and I want everybody to have a piece of it.
Thanks. Well, the best place is grief.com. You can find me there. I have information about the courses I have. I have information about support groups, Tender Hearts, the Grief Educator Program. All my books are there. I have these books, Finding Meaning, that we've talked about. There's also a workbook. People go, what's grief work? So I did a workbook so they can do it like we're sitting at the table. But I have books on dealing with the afterlife, dealing with breakups. You Can Heal Your Heart that I wrote with Louise Hay.
Love her.
Afterlife is Visions, Trips in Crowded Rooms. My first book was The Needs of the Dying, for if we have a loved one who's sick and dying. So lots of resources there. And my Instagram and Facebook and all those are I am David Kessler is my handle.
And I'll share all of that in the description and also on my stories. Thank you so much. I loved this conversation. I felt like, what my friend just told me, it's Liz, by the way, she does makeup. So she just said to me, you sit with him and you instantly feel like you're in a humble space. And it's so true. I feel like I've known you for 100 years.
And I love Liz. I love Liz.
So thank you so much. And
thank you.
For all
Thanks
of you,
everyone listening.
Yeah. For all of you listening, I'm going to put all these details in the description. So if you missed something, you can find it there. Go follow David on all social media platforms. I am David Kessler. I hope that this episode of Beyond Words helped you find healing beyond words. And until next time, have a wonderful day. Yay!